Hey guys, welcome to the Lean to the Left podcast. Today we're talking politics, and with me are Arthur Hill from North Carolina and Robert Thompson from Georgia. I'm a Marylander transplanted into South Carolina, and together we're the Dixie Dems. There's a lot to talk about today, from the debacle of the Republicans' drama of picking a new Speaker of the House of Representatives and controversies surrounding him, to continued drama in Trump world with former allies flipping on him in court, jockeying among Trump challengers to a Supreme Court case based on Trump's size, or lack thereof, a new Democratic challenger for Biden, redistricting in both Georgia and North Carolina that could change the power structure in those states, and then there's Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville blocking a bunch of military types from being confirmed by the Senate because of abortion objections. So stay with us.
Welcome to Lean to the Left, home of no-holds-barred commentary, plus interviews with fascinating people, some of them top experts, others simply with interesting stories to tell. You'll never know who'll show up at Lean to the Left. Now here's your host, Bob Gaddy.
Now, Arthur Hill is communications chair of the Brunswick County, North Carolina Democratic Party. Robert Thompson's based in Atlanta and founded Peach News Now and its opinion podcast, Goddamn Liberals. Me, I do communications work for the Horry County, South Carolina Democratic Party, in addition to hosting this podcast and producing the Lean to the Left blog site. So welcome, guys, to the Dixie Dems on the Lean to the Left podcast. First, let's talk about the new House Speaker, MAGA Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Who wants to go first on this one?
I wish I could. I have no idea who he is. So
You don't know who he is?
No, so let me rewind a little bit. So how long has he been in Congress? Was it like 2 terms?
No, I think 3 terms.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
6 years. Okay.
That's right.
But he has no bank account.
Now, nobody's ever heard of the guy until this. They dragged him out of I don't know where, right?
Yeah.
And he has a bank account. That's right. Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, so Bob and Arthur, I assume that you gentlemen get benefits from our government. Now, does our government mail you a check every month, or is it direct deposited?
Mine are direct deposit.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah.
Most people do not find it fun to go to the bank on the first or the third and stand in line and cash a check. So it's just odd that the Speaker of the House claims he has no bank account. I'm not sure if y'all saw that.
Is it that he doesn't have a bank account, or that the bank account is so bereft of funding that he doesn't have to report it?
There you go, Arthur. If you don't claim you have it, you don't have to answer those questions, I think is where they're going with this.
Yeah.
And now we have this random black child that came out of the closet somewhere. And then I also heard another friend said that his wife did not show up to the swearing in, but maybe her knees weren't doing so good because she was praying so much that he was going to be Speaker of the House, right?
I don't know. I didn't hear any of that stuff. The stuff about the black child, I read, I think it was BET has a piece explaining all this. And according to that piece, they just adopted this kid when he was little, and that I don't see anything unusual about that. It sounded to me like it was a good thing that they did. They're making some kind of nasty thing about this, are they?
I think the thing that really put me off was his favorite answer to the media when they were firing questions at him was, read your Bible.
Yeah, that's his answer for everything, isn't it?
Yeah, read your Bible. It represents another step toward the Christo-fascist tone that a lot of Republicans are taking these days. And I think it was telling that none other than the odious Mike Gates said on Steve Bannon's podcast that he said anybody that doesn't realize that the Republican Party is being, I'm paraphrasing here, but that the Republican Party has been taken over by the MAGA side, hasn't been paying attention. The three of us sitting here, I'm sure, have been paying attention, and it's painful to watch. It really is. It's awful.
It is. And it's not just the MAGA side. It's the conservative Christians that are taking over the Republican Party too, and they're trying to turn this country into something that was not intended by the founding fathers.
Not by a long shot.
No. And
yeah, so we're supposed to have separation of church and state. So forgive me, it's been a while since I've had civics, but separation of church and state is in the Constitution, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if they need to go back and change the Constitution, then clearly, because this guy, and number two, I was about to say, I don't think the name Mike Johnson's anywhere in the Bible. So if all of his responses are go read the Bible, why don't we see the name Mike Johnson in the Bible? He wasn't one of the apostles that I remember. on the version of the Bible that I recall reading.
Did you just say that he wasn't one of the apostles?
Not the one that I remember, no.
That would make him pretty old.
Yeah, it would. Oh, that's one of the problems with the Republicans is that they're all a bunch of old geezers. I guess that we can say that about some of the Democrats too. Oh man. All right. So what else do we have to say about Mike Johnson other than the fact that he's homophobic? Just a crazy right-wing nutcase. Anything else to say about that?
We also have another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, apparently he had a radio show before he came to Congress. So I'm waiting for somebody to come out with some great quotes from that show or from segments of that show episodes.
I bet it's a lot of reading the Bible, Arthur.
Maybe.
But the other thing, so we have a clock ticking, the debt issue, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, right? So my prediction is that the government's going to get shut down again because the Republicans still have this slim majority. And by the way, they didn't kick that New Yorker guy out this week, so he's still in there because they need his vote. So the government's going to get shut down a week and it's going to happen just like it happened the last time. And all these rich donors, because their checks are going to get cut off, which are probably direct deposited, by the way, as well. and the government's going to be back open, or he's going to get thrown out again, and we're going to be back in this mess all over again. They're going to try to find a more crazy person to put up there.
Yeah, because that rule is still in effect. A single person can stand up and ask if the chair be vacated. So anybody could still do it. It would only take one guy, one person, one member to stand up and say, we need to take a vote on getting you out.
Let's do it.
It could happen right after the next continuing resolution gets approved by Congress in a couple of weeks, as you suggest. So he may not be around for long either. We may go back to paralysis. One other thing that is a little bit upsetting is his insistence on separating the legislation to provide more aid to Ukraine and Israel. He wants to pass a separate bill for Israel, and he doesn't say anything about Ukraine.
Yeah.
The isolationist wing of the Republican Party seems also to be masticizing. And it could really hurt in the long run. It could hurt our support for Ukraine, our support for NATO, and any number of other consequences that I'm sure are probably intended by the Republicans.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that they love their guy Trump, who Trump is a huge fan of Putin. It all tracks back and comes together. So here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we ought to break into the court trial up in New York. Is that? But that's not on TV, is it? Just to see how Junior's doing on the stand.
That'd be a good idea.
I wish I could.
Were there enough drugs? I think you needed quite a few drugs to get on the stand, right?
Probably.
It'd be interesting to see whether Junior stands by his dad or starts to try to cover his own ass to protect himself.
And then. I think that's more likely to happen just by looking at their personalities. I think that's probably more likely to happen with Eric than it is with Junior.
That is true, Arthur. If you took a Happy Meal and you took the fries out of a Happy Meal, I do think that Junior got a few more fries out of that package than Eric did.
What about her? Maybe she'll show up, and
she's supposed to. Yeah, she has to show up too.
I wonder if she'll wear that.
She got her own Happy Meal. Daddy's girl got her own Happy Meal, though.
Yeah, it'll be wintertime. She could wear that coat that says "I don't give a shit" on the back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, see that she's not even a co-defendant in that trial. I don't understand why the judge is making her show up and testify. She has nothing to do with this case.
Yeah. Then we have in Georgia, we have this Ellis person pleading guilty, along with Sidney Powell and the other lawyer Kenneth Cheeseborough, plus the guy that put up the money for the bail money for Trump. What's his name? Scott Hall, bail bondsman. What's all that mean for Trump? Who knows what these people will say if they flip on the guy? He could be in deeper shit trouble than what we think.
Bob, years ago, I've lived in Georgia my whole life, and I used to think that my vote and living here didn't make a whole hell of a damn difference. And look at everything revolving around Georgia now. We're a swing state. We got Mama Fanny behind me here on her Let's Make a Deal show. Well, what's behind curtain number 2, Mama Fanny? We got a plea deal for you. You know, no jail time for you. You can keep your law license, but you got to cooperate with me and talk about the man upstairs. Trump is guilty. He's broke. You really, so this bail bondsman, you let him post your bail for you because you couldn't scrounge up the money to do your own bail? It's sad.
It never ceases to amaze me how Trump has got the opposite of the Midas touch. He's got the shit touch, because everything he touches, including the people who come to work for him, get in trouble. They get sued. They got to go to jail. They have to do payoffs to porn stars. It's a reputation ruining scenario for anybody to ally himself or herself with Donald Trump. I just can't understand why people keep doing that.
Well, that raises the question of why the MAGA people still support the guy. I saw a bumper sticker yesterday. I should have taken a picture of this thing, but the card pulled ahead before I had a chance to get my phone out. The bumper sticker said, "The only way I will not support Donald Trump is if I find out that he's screwing Hillary."
There's so much to unpack there.
Yeah, you definitely should take a picture of that.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And I will have to say that guy, I followed him a little ways. He pulled right into my neighborhood. So he's a neighbor.
Oh, you'll probably see that bumper sticker again.
Probably so.
Great bumper sticker.
Yeah. Then we have this Mark Meadows guy who was his former chief of staff. And Trump's pissed off at him because there have been reports that Meadows might flip in the 2020 election case. On Truth Social, Trump called people who cut deals against him with prosecutors weaklings and cowards. He didn't say that Meadows was a weakling or a coward, but he said he might be. I guess he's worried about what Meadows might have.
Don't you? Sorry,
turning against Meadows would be, talk about eating your young. He's the guy that started the conservative caucus when he was a member of the House. Yeah. He is more pro-Trump than 99% of the people who support him. And for Trump to turn against him is just amazing. It's just another example of what happens when you ally yourself with that guy. His biggest ally in the House, certainly his biggest ally as a chief of staff, and now look what happened. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't that the district that Madison Cawthorn tried to represent?
No,
but in that area, right?
Meadows had it, yeah, because they were in Congress at the same time. So yeah, Meadows, but same part of the state, western part of the state, rural part of the state around Asheville, and they both had districts out there.
I hadn't heard that name at least in a while, Madison.
Yeah, you got all those papers piled up on that desk behind you. That looks pretty official. It looks like you're really an important person.
No, that's just my bills.
Oh, those are your bills.
I gotta pay off all my debtors now that I'm making all this money from Dixie Dems.
Hey, how do you like my Trump hat?
I was noticing that. Is that part of your merch?
No, it's not my merch. It's the Horry County Democratic Party's merch.
Oh,
yeah. They had a fundraiser here the other day, and I picked up a couple of these Dump Trump hats. I gave one to a friend of mine who was one of my writers on the Lean to the Left blog, and his name is Chris Waldron. And he said that he didn't know where he would wear it. He was afraid he'd get shot.
There's always that possibility.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, I wouldn't wear it outside of my house, I don't think, unless it was just to a party with a bunch of Democrats, but I certainly wouldn't wear it shopping or
Yeah, I've got a T-shirt that I'm reluctant to wear outside the house. It's a pro Biden T-shirt, and it shows the aviator sunglasses thing, and then it says, the copy below it says, "Will you just shut up, man?" And I like the T-shirt, but I don't know about wearing it in the world.
Yeah, that's the thing. You always have to be careful. At least I don't want to get shot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so now we got Trump with all this stuff going on, all these court cases and everything, these people that are turning against him, and yet he continues to dominate in the Republican sweepstakes. Now things are starting to thin out a little bit. Pence quit, which I thought that was funny. The poor guy, what a sad case he is, Pence.
I think he had an event in the library and only 20 people showed up, which I think is actually more than the lean to the left live audience. But still, we're not running for president either.
So there have been some reports around here that South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, he could be the next one to fall. And Nikki Haley, Arthur, your favorite person, appears to be overcoming DeSantis as number 2. What do you think about that?
I'm telling you, she scares the hell out of me. If she somehow manages to get the nomination from the Republican parties, and I think that's a real threat.
I really do. I think that she could attract a ton of support, and maybe even from some moderate Democrats.
Yeah, and speaking of, this is another point that I think people are underestimating. A friend of mine 3 days ago from Florida about DeSantis, he posted a story. A lady was having issues in her retirement home, because a lot of people retire to Florida, and she had to send a premium quote to a lady for a homeowner's insurance policy that was going to be $17,000 a year. This is up from $5,000 a year than it was. And the article goes through all these details of these major sweeping things of DeSantis's blueprint for America in Florida that was supposed to be so great, but it's not affordable. And this is a clear example that it's failing, that him just choosing to ignore reality and just follow his campaign dollars and donors is a disaster. And proof again, that on top of all of the nasty stuff, and the guy is a horrible speaker. He's not likable at all. And there you go. Nikki, she can get up there and smile, and she can be a pretty Karen and put her pearls on, and she's more appealing.
Yeah.
And I think this is another example of that, very clear. I don't like Nikki Haley either, but if you put the two of them next to each other, good Lord.
I want to read you guys a short passage from Jennifer Rubin's column today in the Washington Post. Here's what she wrote. Speaking of Nikki Haley, her path, so slim it's more akin to a thread to victory, would go like this. Senator Tim Scott, short on money, follows former Vice President Mike Pence in exiting the race. In a signal to the normal GOP crowd, both endorse her. Haley finishes second in Iowa and or New Hampshire, chasing out former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and making it impossible, if he is still in the race, for DeSantis to continue. She then gets to be the single alternative to Trump. There is no sign that Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin or Georgia Governor Brian Kemp are going to wage a campaign. And then, Rubin writes, that's where things get murky, to say the least. Simply being better than all the clumsy, weak, unprepared, and obnoxious alternatives still leaves Haley facing the overwhelming favorite of the GOP base. This is not 2016, when Trump could get by with winning 35% or so of the early primary electorate to beat back a crowded field. This time, he's got roughly a 30% lead in Iowa in the Des Moines Register poll. and about the same in CNN's South Carolina poll. What do you guys think about that?
I agree. And,
Yeah.
and this whole thing that they want to bitch and complain about inflation, and it's just the story that I just told you about what's going on in Florida. You're making Florida unaffordable, but you're going out there and saying you've got a better plan. Well, look at your track record in Florida. You made it unaffordable. And you say you're going to do something about inflation? They have no plan.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that Haley has the smarts to come up with a plan. I've seen stories that talk about what she's trying to do with abortion. And Bob, you mentioned that she might have a carryover effect with some moderate to conservative Democrats. And I think the position that she's thinking about adopting on abortion is probably a good example of what you just said. Let me ask you a question. In South Carolina, when she ran for governor, did she put together was there any kind of crossover vote then with Democrats?
She must have. I can't tell you that because I was not here then. I wasn't paying any attention, but she must have. And when you said that, Arthur, it made me think. I was at a meeting of local Democrats the other weekend. This past weekend, there was a fundraiser. And there's an African-American guy who's running for Congress. He has no chance at all, but he's running for Congress. And he was struggling with positions on two of the very, very controversial issues that he has to deal with here. And one is guns and the other is abortion. Now, among the African-American community in South Carolina, most of them are religion-based. You have to reach them through their churches. You have to show up at the churches and speak and so on. And they have to be wary of the abortion views of this group of people, which tend to be on the conservative side. And there's a group of people right there, I think, that Haley could pick off. I really do. I think she'd probably have the best chance of picking off African-American Democrats in a southern state like South Carolina is probably any of those candidates.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. One of the things we're doing in Brunswick County, North Carolina, is we as a party are reaching out to rural voters and the African-American voters. So, and we've reached out just like you're saying. We're reaching out to the churches, and we've got other initiatives underway, like helping them bring broadband to areas that are unserved within the county now. And our state chair, who herself is from a rural county in North Carolina, in northern North Carolina, she's made it a top priority to go after the rural vote and to make bigger crossroads into the African-American communities. That's a priority here, very much so, with Democrats. And I don't know whether you'll notice significant results by Election Day 2024, but you'll see progress, I'm sure. And that's the way it ought to be. That's exactly the way it ought to be.
Are you seeing in North Carolina among African-American voters the same issue when it comes to abortion?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I can understand why that might be the case, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But so far, we haven't. We've got a pretty liberal stand on abortion in the state and also in the county as a party, and we haven't noticed any pushback. So not yet, but we'll see.
Everything that has happened over the past couple of years with abortion, I have heard more. These are guys, white guys, just slightly younger than me, I would say, that are just scared of the whole abortion thing, coming out and saying that this party is insane. That they are saying that if there's an accident or something like that, and that my lady, whether she's my wife or not, is going to have to carry a baby to term, this is insane. Yeah. And this is the position of this crazy radical Republican Party.
Yeah. We'll have more from the Dixie Dems when we return from this quick break.
Going back to your other point, you have to also look at the very interesting thing that Brian Kemp did here in Georgia. And he continues to tread this line because, love him or hate him, Brian Kemp is not stupid. And he was not the leader when it came to all the Republicans that were trying to run against Stacey Abrams. He came from behind and came out and now twice won against Stacey Abrams. I pulled the statistics because it was going to come up later in our discussion here. Georgia is barely just over 51% white. And the Republicans, I remember Republican pundits naming Martha Zoller coming out saying, we are so proud of our brothers on the other side that are black coming over and voting for Brian Kemp because they claim to have these people that were doing that. It is a thing. And you have this weird thing in politics where some people, I can't explain it. You cannot get into people's minds sometimes. Why a black person in Georgia would choose to vote for Brian Kemp is amazing to me. But I don't walk in their shoes, and I cannot explain that.
Hey, what do you guys think of this Representative Dean Phillips, a Democrat from Minnesota, who's announced he's going to challenge Biden for the Democratic nomination, saying that the party needs to look to the future? Now, Phillips is 54, so I guess he thinks that he should be the future. What do you think?
I don't know if you guys caught Saturday Night Live. I believe it was this past Saturday night, and the opener was quite a jab at Biden's age. It is a thing. I get it. I get that a lot of people are concerned about that. At the end of the day, I'm going to support the Democratic, unless somehow Trump is going to try to jump parties and be a Democratic candidate, which he never would. But at the end of the day, I'm going to support whoever it is. I think we need to be mindful of it because this is also a huge talking point on the other side. Never mind that Trump is ancient and puts on makeup every day to appear to be younger. But Trump he had to get a golf cart to even walk across a golf course or even at these other summits that he was at. Trump is in horrible shape compared to Biden.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Phillips. Do we honestly believe that Dean Phillips could have accomplished so much in the international arena as Biden has for the last 3 years? Could he have pulled NATO back together? Could he have provided the support that the world is giving to Ukraine now? Could he have garnered so much support for Israel and injected himself into that conflict and be an active participant in trying to restore order in the Middle East? I don't think so. I don't think Dean Phillips has the, I don't know about that. I don't know about the intellect, but he certainly doesn't have the experience that Biden does in that arena. And in the domestic arena, Biden knows how the institution works. He knows how the executive branch works. He certainly knows how Congress works. Phillips hadn't been around that long there either, and he hasn't accrued much seniority. And as far as I know, hasn't been the chair of any committees or subcommittees in the House. So what does he bring to the table? I don't understand.
Table? You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
All right. His family had a big distilling company, a booze company. All right. So he brings booze to the table.
That helps.
Even more important, he ran the gelato manufacturing company, Talenti. Now, have you guys ever had Talenti ice cream or gelato? I mean, that stuff is awesome. I eat it almost every night.
It is good. Okay, that's good.
Oh my God, it is just fabulous. And the best one is chocolate chip with coffee flavored. It is just so good. Oh my God, I just love it.
That's good. But when was the last time you heard about a Minnesota liquor product getting any blue ribbons? Minnesota booze? What?
I know. All right. So anyway, there's some people saying that maybe this guy is just a stalking horse for somebody else who is maybe better known and might have a better chance. Do you think that's true, or do you think this is just ego that this guy decided that he should be president, so he's going to run?
That isn't how it works. That isn't how it works. Remember Jane McCarthy when he ran back in 66, 68. The 68. presidential campaign. And everybody thought he was a stalking horse for Bobby Kennedy. That turned out not to be true. And McCarthy did very well in the primaries. And of course, Bobby Kennedy got assassinated as things went along and when he finally entered the race. But stalking horses don't work. The way it works is if you want to run for president, if you want to be president, you got to be out front and you got to run. You can't get somebody else to be a stalking horse. So I don't believe that. So answer to your question is, who the hell knows what he's doing? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either.
And I think
it just reminds me, my whole career, I've known an awful lot of politicians over the years. And there's one thing that they all have in common, and that's a huge ego.
Right.
And sometimes they think, maybe nobody else thinks it, but they think that they're the one that can do it and that should do it and have a right to it and whatever. And I don't know, maybe that's what's going on with this guy. He's a millionaire. Apparently, according to what I've read, he's, as I said, he's an heir to his family's distilling company, and he led the gelato company, Talente. It says here he's Jewish, and he's argued in the wake of the Israel-Hamas conflict that the U.S. needs to support Israel, although he backs a two-state solution long term. It says in Congress, Phillips has been a fairly moderate member of the House Democratic Caucus, falls to the right of about 80% of his party colleagues in voteview.com's ideological data, and he belongs to the center-left, business-oriented New Democrat coalition and the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus. So, that's who the guy is. And you just have to wonder, why all of a sudden is he doing this?
Yeah. The other thing that I would say, I think I may have mentioned it in other episodes. In Canada and the UK, they have more than two political parties, for lack of a better term. We have more, yes, but they're not viable when it comes to a presidential election. Yeah. You've had so many people that have tried to do this third party thing, or they've tried to go against the others. It's not a very good thing to try to do here in the U.S., and a lot of it comes down to campaign finance. Yeah. And until that changes here in the U.S., it's unfortunately you've got to get on one side of the fence or the other. I've tried to say that so many times. It's just the reality here. And as you were listing out this New Democrat coalition, the Problem Solvers Caucus, and all that, for lack of a better term, that really is our multi-party system here for now. That if you have other ideas versus what the mainstream is, you need to go and get one of those caucuses and try to sway there, because otherwise we still have two big parties here, and you've got to get on one side of the fence or the other. I still fear that you are wasting your vote if you do go the direction of one of these third party or these off the sheet candidates. I really worry about that. It goes back up to the concern about Nikki Haley, that she's going to pull blue votes over to her side.
Yeah. Robert, do you think that there's about to be a split in the Republican Party?
Well, there already is.
There's so many fractures in the Republican Party that you're going to get splinters all day long in that thing.
Yeah, but is there a possibility that there could be enough of defections that they could start another party on that side of the aisle?
I don't think they can afford to. And you had even the existing candidates, they were all up on that stage and they asked them, are you going to support Trump with all that? And most of them raised their hands. It's that whole BS and that whole thing that they cannot afford to throw Trump out with the bathwater. They cannot afford to splinter because that's all they have left. And they are barely keeping it together. And all that it got them is this slim majority in the House.
Hey, I got another Trump thing I want to talk about. These court cases that we've been talking about, that's not the only court case that involves Trump that's important. There's actually one before the Supreme Court right now involving Trump. And that's a guy that wants to trademark the phrase, Trump too small, for use on T-shirts and elsewhere. Now, it looks like from what I've read, the justices aren't exactly in this guy's corner. Trump too small. What do you think?
I was going to ask, what did Lauren Boebert say at the theater about that?
What did Lauren Boebert say in the theater? She wasn't manhandling Trump. She was manhandling somebody else, right?
Allegedly, but that's my point. Maybe she agrees.
Maybe she does. But who would care?
How the hell did that case? How did that case get to the Supreme Court?
I have no idea. Don't they have anything better to do?
Yeah, they do have a lot of better things to do, as a matter of fact.
Now, the only other thing that this brings to mind is I know that Taco Bell fought for Taco Tuesday because somebody had trademarked or something about Taco Tuesday, and that got thrown out. So now Taco Bell can market Taco Tuesday. So maybe follow that as a precedent, because obviously there are more Trumps in the world than just Donald Trump.
Yeah, I saw in this piece that I was reading in preparation for this very important discussion, I saw a comment that the justices said the guy can still sell his shirts, as we're not stopping him from selling his shirts. We just don't think it should be copyrighted, because if you copyright Trump too small, you could copyright Trump to this and Trump to that, and there'd be no end to it. So it looks like the court isn't going to give this guy the ability to trademark the phrase Trump too small, but you can still buy his shirts online. So that's really important, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, Bober didn't ask her.
That's some important things to talk about. Redistricting in Georgia and in North Carolina. Some big stuff happening. Arthur, talk to me first about what's going on in North Carolina.
The Republicans are at it again. First of all, a little background. In North Carolina, the governor has no say-so or authority in redistricting or gerrymandering. He's totally out of the picture. The supermajority in the state legislature put together a set of maps, for congressional maps and district maps, and in secret reported them out of committee on one day and literally approved them the next. And so as it stands right now, the congressional delegation from the state of North Carolina would go from 7-7, which is what it is in the current Congress, to as much as 11-3 in the next Congress, based on what the Republicans have done with gerrymandering. And they've also created a nice district for the woman who turned the Republican majority into a supermajority by defecting from the Democrats. They created a nice district for her to run for re-election that voted for Trump by about 10 or 15 points in the last election. So Gretchen Cotham is set for life, as she wants to be, with the legislature, even though there's talk about her running for Congress. But I think there's going to be some lawsuits. Oh, one other thing. When the legislature passed its budget just a few weeks ago, it included a provision that the legislators could destroy any of their paperwork. Nothing has to be, there's no sunshine rule at the state legislature. It's any paperwork that a legislator or state senator has is his own to keep, and nobody else has to see it. So nobody will know anything about the history of the gerrymandering and what correspondence or views or anything that transpired. Plus, the Supreme Court is now solidly in the Republican camp. So if a lawsuit about the gerrymandering reaches the state Supreme Court, it's pretty clear how they're going to rule. So it doesn't look good in North Carolina for what's going to happen at the state or in the House of Representatives. Not a good thing.
Things are a little bit better in Georgia, right?
A lot better.
Yeah, I was reading up on a couple of updates on this before the call, and I went out because I was curious what basis. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not trying to be one, but I figure we are educated, and Georgia gave me a good public education to be able to read through this. So Georgia, as I said earlier, is just over 51% white. The other side of that is they're calling it 49.6 non-Hispanic white here in Georgia. 31% claim to be Black or African American here in Georgia. But when you look at our 14 districts here in Georgia, 9 are represented by white people, 5 of them by Black people. It should be closer to, that should be 6 or 7 non-white people that should be representing Georgia's 14 districts here. So clearly, I think when they looked at the makeup and how these, I used to literally over in Cobb County, which I take a little bit of credit for. It wasn't all me, but it had to be a portion. But there was a time over in Cobb County that literally across the street from me, they had a different representative than the one that Barry Loudermilk, which is still in Congress, chose to gerrymander me into his district and basically ignore me. The guy never does town halls. He has campaigned with child molesters. There are crazy radical people out there, but just because they know I'm not going to do a town. Oh, and by the way, he didn't vaccinate his kids either. But the people like this, that they're going to have to get off their ass, and they're going to have to go out and actually campaign a little bit more and work harder for the people that they're gerrymandering into their districts. And then you look on the other side, these 5 Black representatives, maybe they have to campaign a little bit harder, but you look at those districts and how they have drawn them. You've got them so blue. And the Cook report, one of the districts is blue plus 24. Okay, it doesn't have to be that heavily gerrymandered. And when you look at these maps, that they're talking about doing a new district over on the west side of Atlanta that will probably go. So I'm very excited that it's going to be 1 or 2 more blue districts to send our representatives up to D.C. But Mr. Josh McCoon, now imagine that you are the Georgia Republican State Party chairman. What a tough job to have right now. But Josh McCoon, I actually have been at a bar where he tried to sing karaoke. That is my one small connection to Josh McCoon, and it was not pretty. But he described this as a naked power grab. Never mind that his Republicans have gerrymandered the shit out of this for years. And just that example, when I was in Barry's district for all those years, and just they don't care that they have the power. It's like a kid on the playground. They are going to run away with it and do it every time.
Because they can.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the last thing I wanted to bring up was this Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama. Now, we have Veterans Day coming up on the 11th, Saturday the 11th. And we all need to be thankful to our veterans and express our appreciation for the sacrifices that they've made. And we don't need some senator holding up the confirmation by the Senate of more than 400 military officers that need to be confirmed by the Senate. And the guy, Tuberville's holding up their confirmation because he's upset that the Pentagon has a new policy that they'll pay for travel when a service member has to go out of state for an abortion or other reproductive care. Now, what do you guys think about that?
They don't care. Tuberville, last I heard, he lives in Florida. He doesn't even live in Alabama.
Really?
He just used the name because he was an Auburn coach, and there was a seat over there that they could win. He's an asshole, honestly, for doing this. And he needs to step aside and just let things happen. My uncle was in the Air Force, and he had to retire when he hit captain and did not make that next rank. He would be up to major there. I have other family members that are in the armed forces right now that actually could be affected. I'm not connected with them recently. I have a former stepbrother who was killed in Afghanistan. This is horrendous and stupid. That an asshole like this is standing up on a podium and trying to make abortion some political issue to hold this back. Bye. Kiss my ass, Tuberville. I think you're an asshole for this.
There you go.
And just to make things worse, here is the commandant of the Marine Corps who had a heart attack on Sunday, and he's in critical care in a hospital up around D.C. somewhere, and the guy that has to back him up is the third guy in command, because the second guy, the guy who would normally be behind the commandant, is being held up in the Senate. It's just appalling to me that anybody would make so light of national security and by pulling off a stunt like this. And I hope that what Schumer's got in mind works. I don't understand why it's going to take it so long for that to happen. The reports I see that if Schumer's gambit to approve everybody en bloc has to clear the Senate is going to take weeks, and I don't understand why it takes so long. But it looks like a lot of Republicans are starting to lose their sense of humor with their colleague from Alabama, and maybe if it percolates for a little while longer, maybe they'll outright vote against him and vote with the Democrats that want to approve all these nominations.
And it comes back to things don't tend to change until they hit home. And we talked about abortion. That's hitting home. And you've got even going more extreme out in Texas, where these people cannot even drive through a county or a city for fear of getting arrested for trying to find an abortion, for a decision that a woman makes, that wants to make for herself. You've got this guy out there that maybe there's an officer in one of the armed forces that is just in this holding pattern because they don't know what the hell is going on. It's so unfortunate that it has to actually come down to that reality, that maybe these people they continue to lose power and this ship just sinks. It's sad. It really is sad.
It is. It is. I want to put in a little plug for a upcoming episode that'll be on the Lean to the Left podcast. It's an interview with Dr. Paul Lawrence, who is the former Undersecretary for Benefits in the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And Dr. Lawrence has written a book, Veterans Benefits for You. And I don't know if you can really see it, but his book is packed full of helpful tips for veterans on how they can maximize the benefits that they're entitled to from the U.S. government. And he was kind enough to be with us to be interviewed. And that show will be streaming in honor of Veterans Day on Thursday, November the 9th. So if that's all I have, you guys have anything else you'd like to add?
I need to lower my blood pressure here, but I'm good.
I'm exhausted.
I am too. And my dog is telling me that he needs attention. And my wife is sitting here and she wants a little attention. So you guys, I'm going to knock it off, if that's all right with you. Now, just one more break, and I'll have some closing comments when we return. Hey, guys, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you'll come back on a regular basis and check out our interviews with guests on topics that I hope you find interesting, entertaining, and enlightening. Our episodes stream weekly, every Monday. Let your friends know about this podcast and take a minute to subscribe. Just go to podcast.leantotheleft.net to subscribe, check out the upcoming interview schedule, and listen to all of our episodes. And follow us on social media, Facebook at the Lean to the Left Podcast, Twitter at Lean to the Left 1, Instagram at BobGaddy_Lean to the Left, and TikTok at Lean to the Left. And you can watch the episodes at YouTube at Lean to the Left. And don't forget to visit our blog site, leantotheleft.net, where you'll find commentary on the news by some excellent writers with progressive perspectives on a whole range of topics. You can sign up as a member there, and of course, it's all free. Now, this is Bob Gaddy signing off for Lean to the Left. Thanks for sharing your time with us.